Hello, could you introduce yourself?
Jonathan Howell-Jones. I am currently on cohort 9's MBA program, and I'm currently doing my management project with a view to graduating in September of 2010. Sorry, 2009.
And what is it you do for a living?
I'm a journalist by trade. I'm currently managing editor of Trends, which is the current affairs magazine for Arab affairs across the region.
Could you explain what you did for the personal development portfolio?
Yes, I looked at 3 different areas for the personal development portfolio. The first was stress and time management. The second was coaching and mentoring. And the third was networking. Now, when I looked at this course initially, I freely admit that I was highly skeptical as what it could offer me. I felt that this perhaps was just going to be more of an academic exercise, but I was rapidly proven wrong when I realized it actually provided me with different action plans to develop myself personally and professionally. I should point out that the main reason for this is to develop yourself professionally, but you also develop yourself personally because you realize that you're improving as a person, and that counts towards your working life as well as your personal life. Now, when it came to my looking at time and stress management, I had to look at different ways to improve the way that I cope with stress. Now, journalism is a very stressful profession. You are constantly dealing with deadlines. You're constantly dealing with a variety of different issues to ensure that you can get the work in, and also qualitatively. I realize that it's very easy to be good at what you do, but you do need to find ways to relax, to also improve ways of enjoying what you do. The old expression, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, is very true, and I think to a certain extent doing this particular part of the PDP made me realize this. So I make a point, for example, of doing scuba diving more regularly, one of my more popular hobbies with myself, and it does make a big difference when you give yourself time to have some fun. It's not just all work and study on the MBA. You can also work, study, and also have some fun at the same time. When I looked at coaching and mentoring, I would say this was probably one of the most rewarding elements, because it really made me think about how I'm helping and developing others in the same way that I'm doing an MBA to develop myself. I looked at different methods by which I could improve my coaching and mentoring skills. I looked at, as well as various books, also putting into practice some of the learning applications that I had, discussing and getting feedback from some of my staff. And that helped me get a much better idea of how I could maximize my effectiveness as a coach, because ultimately, especially when it comes to journalism and the media, you need to ensure that there are set, consistent levels of skills, and we don't necessarily find that in the region. So ensuring that I can impart these skills is very important. Thirdly, and finally, when it comes to networking, as a journalist, you tend to collect business cards pretty much almost like baseball cards. But quite frankly, it's another thing when you're looking at networking with regards to improving and developing your career. A lot of people tend to assume that people they know they can just phone up, and that every now and then they can say what's going on. I realize that there are actually a variety of useful tools by which you can develop your networking skills to advance your career. And in fact, doing the professional development portfolio proved it true for me, when the networking skills that I developed and improved during the course of this year enabled me to get this current position as managing editor of Trends, which I personally consider the best editorial position in the region. As a result, it's important to realize that what you're doing with the personal development portfolio is in fact improving yourself. And ultimately, it's something that you need to remind yourself constantly throughout the year that you must be doing this. You need to be thinking about what your action plans are. I always work on the 5 Ps, which is quite simply this: prior planning prevents poor performance. If you have your action plans done properly, you've got an idea of what you can work to. Now, bear in mind, plans don't always work the way you want them to, but at the same time, it gives you a framework from which to move on to. If you haven't necessarily been able to find one thing, you've been able to look at developing on others, at least it helps you keep in mind what your goals are, what the ultimate objectives are of your personal development portfolio, and by the end of it, to be able to say, this is where I started out, and this is where I have come to now as a result of this framework of planning, implementation, and action. I believe plan, do, check, act is probably one of the 4 most important words, not only for the PDP, but also for your MBA.
Overall then, PDP, do you think it was worth it?
Yes, I do. Again, I should point out I was a skeptic. I thought this was going to be a pointless exercise along the same line as most other sort of motivational speakers. However, this is practice grounded in the theory, which proved itself to be true. This isn't just meaningless blah, but it only works if you put the effort into it. And quite frankly, it's a bit like having a beautifully designed car, but if you don't fill it up with petrol and if you don't service it properly, of course things are going to go wrong. Ultimately, the person who's accountable is the driver, and that's you.
On that metaphor, Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.